We'll do it live, as they say. Good evening and welcome to MOMENTOUS Live, episode 81. I'm Tristan Jutra.
I'm William Silver.
And you'll notice there's no Tasia Custody and there's no Gray Williams yet. Gray is on his way. So we'll just sit here quietly until he arrives. I was just waiting to see who would break first, but apparently I have no willpower. So, hey, well, just you and me. We've got a few things to catch up on, a little bit of follow-up before we dive in head first into
1 hour on Andor. Let's do this.
I would totally
do.
Even if you stole my pick. But we'll get there. But first, if you want to find out about us here at Momentous, you can go to this little thing, which is momentus.tv/links. And that's where you can find us on all the social medias.
Meads?
That's what, I don't know, that's what the kids say.
Gotcha.
So, you ready? You ready, Will?
Let's do it.
All right. Hopefully we can drag out these preliminary stories until Greg gets here for the main attraction.
Sounds good.
First, a little bit of follow-up. Let's talk more AI-generated art. Stable Diffusion, which is along with DALL-E and Crayon and more recently Stable Diffusion. Oh, and Midjourney, of course. They're all these AI generated art tools that we can use, and they're causing a little bit of controversy within certain communities and galleries, certain websites, and artists themselves have something to say on that. But it turns out that one researcher has discovered that Stable Diffusion, which is one of the more recent of these AI generative art projects, can also has another purpose, sort of a side purpose, and they're finding it does a really good job at lossy compression. So lossy compression as opposed to lossless compression. So lossless compression is, say, when you're making a zip file and you need to protect all the contents 100%, or maybe it's a like a raw image that you take on your camera, or like a wave file that's uncompressed audio. So or there's a lossless compression, ALAC or FLAC audio. And I guess wave files technically aren't compressed at all. They're just like the full enchilada. But FLAC and ALAC are lossless compression. So it's like, how do you compress a file without actually throwing away any data? On the other hand, lossy compression is where you want to save as much space as possible and you throw out as much data as you can while still maintaining the integrity of the image or audio or video or what have you. And there's certain sliders and controls that you give you options between the amount of quality you maintain and the amount of visible or audible loss you hear in said resulting file. So Stable Diffusion, they're finding, actually seems to do a pretty decent job with certain small image sizes compared to JPEG, which most folks are familiar with. Is one of the most dominant file formats, especially on the web. WebP, I believe, is a Google format, and they give a few examples here where they show comparisons of the original image and then WebP at 6 3/4 kilobytes, JPEG at about 5 2/3 kilobytes, and Stable Diffusion just under 5 kilobytes for the same image, and it looks better than those larger file sizes. Now, apparently it doesn't do so great with things like human faces, and sometimes it can even invent details that didn't exist originally, because this is a generative art algorithm, and it's not. Its primary purpose wasn't for maintaining the details of the image. It's just trying to generate new details. But what people have been able to use AI for as well is upscaling images as well. So you take a lower quality image and then you manage to upscale. And we've talked about that before here on Momentous Live, and that's pretty cool. So another little side purpose or side implementation of one of these projects, Stable Diffusion. So we'll see if that ends up going anywhere, and if they start building it into things like Adobe Photoshop and supporting it in web browsers and the like. We shall see. But Will, I know this other Stable Diffusion project you're going to be even more interested in. One fellow named Max Wolf resurrected Ugly Sonic using Stable Diffusion textual inversion. So I think we talked about this story over a year ago, or maybe longer. Did we talk about it on the show, or was it just in person, where they were making the live action Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and the original character model was a little strange, to say the least. And there was an internet revolt. And then the movie studio went back to the drawing board and recreated Sonic in a much more appealing way. So we can see comparison between the original Ugly Sonic and the newer Sonic, which is much more, video game-ish, cartoonish, etc., and had those kind of cartoonish proportions that we know and love from the Sonic video game series. So this fella took it upon himself to use Stable Diffusion to try to recreate Ugly Sonic, and he got pretty close, but some of the byproducts in the process were somewhat nightmarish and kind of fun. So he documents on his blog the whole process, starting with Sonic, just using DALL-E 2, a portrait of Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's just showing him regular hedgehog images. And then he moves over to Stable Diffusion, the other platform, and uses the prompt, a portrait of Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's it gives us 4 different versions. One sort of cartoony, a couple, and the other 3 somewhat 3D-ish with some strange artifacts, an extra pupil here or there, or like a mouth that doesn't go all the way across.
2 mouths,
and the like. And then he went into Stable Diffusion, saying a beautiful portrait of Ugly Sonic by Leonardo da Vinci, and we got some very strange, almost furry-like versions of Sonic there. So maybe some people are into that. And then one of the key things with these generative art algorithms is the quality of the prompts that you can provide. And I'm sure that you experienced that when you were coming up with some of your cover art for your Beats projects, Will, really tweaking those prompts. And he went with, in this case, a beautiful portrait of Ugly Sonic by Leonardo da Vinci, painting oil on canvas. So we've got like slightly more classical art styles. In a couple instances, it even includes like a picture frame. It gets a little closer, hyper-realistic Ugly Sonic. Unreal Engine, which is an engine that powers a whole ton of video games out there and even some movies for 3D animation, 4K, so the higher definition there. And we're getting pretty close to Ugly Sonic. Then he's got Ugly Sonic sitting and eating a chili dog, stock photo. So in the style of a stock photo. And for some reason,
one where it's like
eating a chili dog. Like, what is up with that? Hyper-realistic Ugly Sonic shakes hands with Barack Obama. Like, why not? So watch the deepfakes are out there, folks. If you see a picture of Ugly Sonic shaking Barack Obama's hand, it's not real. All right, and then they go full circle and do Ugly Sonic as a character in a Genesis video game, 16-bit pixel art. So taking a character that was originally in a video game and making him look like he was in a worse video game at the end of the day. And here, a hyper-realistic portrait of Ugly Sonic in the style of LLS and the style of Nebula, trending on ArtStation, again, a popular website for art. So LLS is liquid light style concept, and Nebula style concept, which you can follow the links in the article if you want more information on that. So those are pretty wild and wacky. And then here's a couple more superhero-ish. Ugly Sonic dynamic comic hero pose, detailed city at night background, aesthetic, captivating concept art, anime, hyper detailed and intricate, realistic shaded, fine detail, realistic proportions, symmetrical, sharp focus, 8K resolution with linear flat ink trending on Pixiv Fanbox, again in Stable Diffusion. And some interesting results there. So that's sort of where he ended off, but he got pretty close to those the realistic proportions, more human-like proportions for Sonic the Hedgehog, which most fans ended up hating. So mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Way to go, Max Wolf.
If you like this whole exploration of Ugly Sonic, I recommend watching the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, Tristan.
I have not seen it yet, but he
But
makes an
don't,
appearance, doesn't he?
yeah. That's the only thing is this article ruins that. It's
Oh,
kind of nice when it's a surprise, but
okay. Well, so if it's ruined, we'll ruin it anyway while talking about it. Anything else to add on this this
no.
whole adventure? I mean, anything
Other
about like
than
the prompts? Yeah.
the first story, the JPEG story,
Uh-huh.
and compression. I mean, that's a big thing in my world, right? Like, especially not as much as it used to be, but it used to be a massive thing about finding the right file size, and you'd spend a lot of time about tweaking the settings and stuff like that. But even now, search engines pay a lot of attention to load speed. So, are you
Sorry,
just
we're laughing
watching this? Yeah,
the
you need
trailer
to
is
watch
like-
the whole movie though. That's not the only appearance. It's really good. But this is why that movie is so great. Like, I don't think people
Very
appreciate.
meta.
Yeah, it's very meta. But yeah, I mean, like even now with load speed, it's something that we worry a lot about. Or like various web platforms will give you different compressions automatically, and some of that can still be pretty hefty. There's a whole series of things with compression with WordPress and other of the major platforms, Joomla and all that. So yeah, it's definitely something that is really a big thing. So if there's any improvement, it sounds like a small difference, but it's a massive difference.
All right. Let's hear it for AI and all its benefits for file compression and ugly sonic rendering, but
Woo,
until
woo.
it takes over the world. So
Yeah.
a little bit of other quasi follow-up, but actually kind of new news. A few months ago, we spoke about the invasion of Ukraine and what Elon Musk was doing to try and help by way of getting a bunch of Starlink terminals into Ukraine to provide more interrupted internet access for those suffering the effects of the invasion, such as destruction of infrastructure and whatnot, and providing certain people in the population, especially I imagine those in command and control instances, to or capacities to stay connected to the internet and each other wherever possible. So more and but a bunch of hullabaloo is made about that. We've got hundreds, if not thousands, of Starlink satellites in the sky, low Earth orbit (LEO), and this all depends. You have to have the satellites in the right positioning, and you also have to have the terminals on the ground. So more recently, we've got the protests in Iran, and there's a lot of civil unrest there over the last few days. And of course, the regime in Iran has really tightened up internet access and control, censorship and whatnot, as there certain regimes are known to do here and there, especially in times of strife. So Elon, as he does, he's always good for getting some publicity, has committed to providing Starlink satellite receivers and routers to Iran, and has said that they will have the appropriate satellite or satellites in position. It's simply a question of actually getting the dishes and routers into the country, which might be a little tricky since the government of Iran probably won't allow them officially. So they're going to have to be smuggled in, which is a whole other thing. And will any official U.S. government be involved with that? Again, to help the people of Iran who want unfettered access to information and see the unvarnished truth about what might be happening. There are other ad hoc networks which people can use to organize. One that was used during some of the Hong Kong protests several years ago was, I think it was called Fire Chat, and that one used kind of a mesh network using, I think it was Bluetooth between devices, and people could message each other without even having to go to the internet, which is kind of neat. But
we talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah. So this is a but the Starlink would be like full on internet access if they could actually get the dishes into the country, and so that's, I think, remains to be seen. So more to follow on that story there. Well, I mean, what is your take on a billionaire with who's obviously adept at gaining publicity and talks a good game, and sometimes delivers.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, with certain things, he'll be a little optimistic on how early things can get delivered, especially when it comes to whether it's space projects or car projects or the like. But how do you feel about billionaires like this with these resources stepping into geopolitical sort of issues within sovereign nations and offering to help the people there, despite what the regime may wish?
I mean, it's one of these delicate issues. I mean, the the quick response is that it's nice to see Elon trying to do good, but always the problem is, you know, who judges what is good. Now, to me,
Mm-hmm.
that's good, but this is one of those things where you can definitely people do extreme things in the sake of or in the name of doing good, and don't end up helping. So yeah, you got to tread lightly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my first reaction is this is awesome, but then it's like, well, if you start doing that, then what's the next thing you're going to do? So also, Elon doesn't have 100% record when it comes to helping people. I mean, that Ukraine one was great, but I mean, I as you know, I watched a number of documentaries on the saving of the soccer team from Thailand, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he infamously was a bit of a troll in that, accusing people of being pedophiles, because they rejected his help, wanting to do all sorts of extreme things.
They're going to
So
build a submarine real quick
yeah,
and
it's like
send
we're
it
gonna
over.
bore a hole, we're gonna build a submarine, whatever it was. It's like, yeah, thanks, guy. Go back to Twitter and do something else. Yeah, I mean, in this case, I think his heart's in the right place. It, you know, it, I'm not a big fan of some of the things the regime is doing, but at the same point, it's hard for me to judge another culture. So it's,
Oh, don't tell me you're both sidesing this one.
I'm not bull sizing. I would love to go there and support people who are looking for freedom, but I think we always have to be careful about getting too involved in sovereign nations. So
Yeah, it gets complicated,
it
especially
gets
when
complicated.
especially when
Yeah.
you have various alliances and
I
other
mean,
sovereign
and
nations and
hey, just to get on
mhm,
a soapbox, I mean, the internet is full of this. People
mhm.
thinking that they're doing right by exposing this, and then people think they're doing right by exposing that when they're both doing the exact same extremes on either side. So who's to judge which one of those two people is right? It's what they feel is right, but it's not. There's no arbiter of goodness in the world. It's not black and white. So that's where I think this is probably a clear win, but at the same time I always just a little bit hesitate on things like this about getting too, especially when you're breaking rules. It's one thing when you're just helping and it's fine and you're not smuggling hardware into a sovereign nation and things like this, but like with Ukraine, I mean, they're like, we would love them, okay, here you go. That's kind of a win-win. I'm sure Russia wasn't super thrilled about it, but they weren't really breaking any laws while they were doing it, right?
Yeah,
So
they weren't smuggling them into Russia. They were simply delivering them
yeah,
probably from Poland into right into Ukraine,
yeah,
which was ostensibly a sovereign nation, though others may try
yes,
to claim
yeah.
or make otherwise. But
Yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on it, but
what are your thoughts on slamming spacecraft into asteroids?
I think that's awesome.
Well, we're going to. This is our sort of our main story this week, and hopefully, Gray will be able to join us as our momentous astronomy correspondent. And we're expecting him to drop in at any time here. So, in the last couple of weeks, there's been some lead up to this. About 3 weeks ago, we started to see some images going around talk about the destination. So this is all for NASA's Double Asteroid Redirection Test, DART, which is a spacecraft that is heading to the asteroid Didymos and its moonlet Dimorphos. So the idea here is that these are far enough away, and this could be a fun little test to see, what the Armageddon / deep impact kind of scenario, how it might actually play out in real life, assuming you don't have Bruce Willis at your disposal. And we start to see some images of what it was looking like from a distance. And the idea here is that they were just going to slam this little spacecraft into, known as the Dart, not into the asteroid itself, but into the little moonlet that's orbiting it, and that would provide enough energy and enough disruption to actually throw the trajectory of the asteroid and its moonlet, whatever's left of it, away from wherever it was headed. In this case, it wasn't like heading straight to Earth or anything, but the idea is that if it were, then you get it early enough and you just need to nudge it a little bit. Like the earlier you get it, the less you need to nudge it, right? Because you've got more space to work with, and you can revisit your trigonometry textbooks if you like there. So this happened Monday, and I can't remember what time of day it was. I think it was early evening. The Dart spacecraft itself is about 600 kilograms. So, that's 1,200, about 1,500 pounds or so, and pretty simple. And it's got a single camera on it that has been capturing images the entire way. And of course, there's a number of other cameras, some on Earth and some in orbit, and also another small one called the I don't know how you pronounce it, the Lycia Cube. It's built by the Italian Space Agency. So it was actually released from DART itself earlier in the month, and was on a course to take it past the asteroid about 3 minutes after the impact. So it was set to capture some images there too. So as the story progressed, then yesterday, the DART actually made its connection with the moonlet. And we've got some video here from NASA that shows the lead up about 3 minutes before it hits, and so it's sending one image about every second or two. And in the inset, you see the NASA team who are watching this as it all unfolded. And I mean, it's a little sad in a way, because this is basically a suicide mission for the craft itself. But it's like it's doing the Lord's work. I'm not sure if it's politically correct to say Torah in this case, but look, here we go. It's filling the image, and we're filling the frame, that is. And as we get closer and closer, you start to see a whole lot of detail, and then there's a second to last image, and then we have impact, and what you see is the very last image will be a partial image, just the first couple, the first say eighth or so, and the rest, it's done. Yeah. So it's kind of neat to be able to see that in real time. And on first blush, it seems like, well, this is a success. I mean, they managed to direct it. I mean, it's still mind-boggling that they're able to, direct something so far away, at 14,000 miles an hour, basically. And the real proof in the pudding is going to be whether or not it manages to change the direction of the asteroid itself enough to, potentially save the Earth if the Earth was going to be a potential target in that case, or some future case. But this is, I mean, we're going from 20 years ago science fiction, or was it what year was Armageddon? 99, 98, so maybe even a little bit more than that. And I'm sure there's been other stories in the past as well. But if you can dream it, you can do it, sort of thing, right? So then there's been some other footage starting to emerge. The images from the Lycia Cube spacecraft and their Luke camera. So, it's a little blurry. They're not going to win any awards, though. But I mean, remember, this is in space, right? And we got some still images here, which are kind of neat. And then a different angle on the impact itself, which we see in animated GIF format.
Ooh.
Poof. So you can just watch that over and over again. So that was the Atlas project time lapse. So I believe that is from Earth based cameras. So if anyone has gotten inspired by all this astro smashing action, there was a game that was mentioned in one of the articles on the topic that is from 1995, and it's called The Dig. And I believe it's a LucasArts production. And it's the premise is an asteroid the size of a small moon is on a crash course toward Earth. Once the wayward asteroid is nuked into a safe orbit, a trio conducts a routine examination of the rocky surface. What they uncover is anything but routine. So it's kind of taking it a little further. It's like, hey, well, we managed to divert this extinction level event causing asteroid away from Earth. But while we're here, let's check out this asteroid a little deeper. And apparently, on the inside of the asteroid, spoiler alert, is a spacecraft.
Bum, bum,
dun, dun, dun. So, but the cool thing is that the Dig is available on Steam for people to play on their platform of choice, whichever is Steam supports, and Steam supports an increasing number of platforms nowadays. So there's a little homework for those who are gotten in the mood, thanks to our little Dart project. Well, any questions? Any thoughts? Are we living in the future where we're able to smash into not asteroids themselves, but they're tiny moonlets, at a distance,
This is always where it feels like this is one of those times where you get to be a grown-up kid if you're the people who are slamming something into something else.
Yeah, I mean, it's 7 million miles away, and we're able to pick this off. And these celestial objects were discovered in 1996. So Didymos, the asteroid itself, and then Dimorphos. Dimorphos was the asteroid, and Didymos, I guess, was the moonlet. But anyway, they were discovered in 1996 and 2003, respectively. They're known as the first binary asteroid system to be studied in detail. So, yeah, living in the future. So hopefully, when the big one comes, we see it soon enough, because that's the other part of the equation. Being able to peer through all the space junk in orbit, including those Starlink satellites that we were talking about, to actually identify any asteroids and other objects, comets and the like, that might be heading our way that could cause a bad time if they actually reached us. So this proof of concept is great, and it's the fact that we're at the point of technological advancement where we can actually do something about it now. It's a big sigh of relief here. So let's just see if they actually manage to bump it enough off course.
Not just going to shoot Bruce Willis up there,
Exactly. Yeah. Well, he retired a few months ago, right? That's no good.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move into some other kind of unrelated but fun news. I thought that you might appreciate this. Swedish house mafia. That's our favorite kind of mafia.
Yeah.
They have a record player it's actually going on sale next month for $159.99. Now, I can't claim that this is like a super high-end sort of record player here, but it's part of Ikea's Obergrensad collection, which is the Unlimited collection, which also includes an armchair, desk, LED work lamp, record stand, laptop stand, shoveling units, and other things. So just imagine a turntable, but it's made by Ikea. And it's got the Swedish House Mafia imprimatur on it. It's belt-driven, comes with a replaceable AT3600L cartridge with a conical diamond tip, and supports 2 speeds, 33 and 45 revolutions per minute. So you can't play your old 78s on there, sorry, or your 16 RPM children's storytime records from the 70s. That's where I learned everything I know today. It's from those. So, is this just is this even who's this for? Do you think?
I think it's it's a cheap turntable. I don't know the quality of the build, but you know, 100 what was it, $168? That's
US, yeah,
yeah,
159 US, yeah.
that's not bad. I mean, it's also kind of not unattractive looking. You need another power source or a cable that will plug into the wall.
Yeah, natively powered by USB-C. Otherwise,
Yeah, yeah.
no built-in speakers. So you got to
No
plug it into
built-in
your amp.
speakers.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I probably wouldn't get it. If it was belt driven, it would be 3 times as expensive. But
Oh, you mean
or
if it was
sorry,
direct drive?
yeah, direct drive. If it was direct drive, I would get it in a heartbeat. But this is belt driven, so it doesn't really work for my purposes. But yeah, I mean, it's got a replaceable cartridge, which is good. I don't know if it could take other cartridges. You'd have to look into that.
I think the fact that it's got a built-in preamp for that price is not
Yeah,
bad. I'm sure it's not
yeah.
the highest quality one there, but for for an IKEA customer,
Yes.
this probably hits the mark pretty
Well,
well.
and
Yeah.
it you know, I'm all for things that get vinyl in more people's hands, and if people want to try vinyl, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say vinyl is for everyone. I'm not that vinyl purist. I have vinyl. I like vinyl. I have turntables, but I also
And you're not
see
even
it-
a boomer.
I'm even a boomer, but I also see the point in having digital equipment as well. So the DJs often will get into this camp about vinyl or not vinyl, and I just say I'm Switzerland on both. I have both. I have both setups. There's reasons to use one, and there's reasons to use another. So, but I mean, if people want to experiment with vinyl, $160 US isn't that bad to get in on. And again, I have no idea about the sound quality, but I think this is a nice option, and it's got a big name behind it, or 2 big names behind it. So so yeah, I'm all for it. It's probably not for me, but you know, I like to see stuff like this. IKEA's been doing a number of interesting sound options. I think we covered all the stuff they did with Teenage Engineering, which I was actually really interested in. They had lights and speakers and stuff that had some cool functionality. So I'm all for this kind of stuff to make audio technology more appealing to the masses.
Yeah, and if this is sort of a gateway drug for people to get into vinyl, and if they're trying to manage their expenses a little and looking at secondhand vinyl, the only one thing that I would say is try to find yourself an affordable vinyl cleaning system.
Yes.
Clean your records before you go and stick them on a brand new player with a brand new cartridge on it.
Yeah, for
otherwise, you're kind of defeating the purpose. The whole one of the main reasons that CDs became so popular is you didn't have that snap crackle pop, as our friend of the show Sam Chow often says, the whole Rice Krispies vinyl experience there. But if you clean your records, you can eliminate 95% of that. And
also look for warping. That's another big thing that used vinyl can sometimes have issues with is warping.
Or you can just buy brand new records, which nowadays are like $40 an
Oh man, $60.
Yeah.
And then you have I think I talked about this before. There's a huge problem with pressing vinyl right now because I don't know. There's only 1 or 2 factories in the world that make the original slugs or whatever, and so there's been a backup, and also with shipping stuff and all that fun stuff, supply chain issues. But like bands like Metallica were jumping the queue and paying extra money. Look who it is.
Speaking of jumping the queue.
Hello.
Hello.
Look at that soft filter on that camera.
It's none other than Gray Williams, who is here with a late-breaking camping vehicle report for us. Gray, what were you doing?
I was out in Burnaby taking a look at a teardrop trailer that was handmade. I don't know who made it, but it's gorgeous. Like, it looks like it's made out of marine plywood, and it's got sort of a steampunky vibe to it. It's got Harley Davidson birds on the back with the little cross lights. Brass fixtures. It's tiny. It's adorable. Yeah. So we're making the decision as to whether or not we were going to purchase it. But who knows? We're doing a little bit of talking tonight. It was not this was a sort of mid-afternoon. my friend Jeff sent us a note and was like, "Hey, we've got some friends who are selling this." There's Solo chiming in, but yeah, it was a very interesting thing to go look at, and so it needs a little work. So right now it's like, can we find a place to put this? Can we find a place to work on it? I think I mentioned to you guys I was taking a welding course last week. So I learned how to weld.
Right.
Yeah, so this is it.
Wow. So this is
cool.
This is custom made, you said.
Custom made, yeah. It's about 10 years old, and apparently it's been all over the United States. And a friend of ours, his mom had purchased it and wanted to do some camping, and things have changed a little bit. Not doing as much camping, so it's time to find a new home for this. And it's apparently inspired by a PT Cruiser. I guess the previous owners had owned a PT Cruiser in that color, so it kind of one of the Woodies. So it really did match.
That tracks.
Yep. So the luggage rack on the back. Possibly throw a solar panel on there. There's a whole bunch of things in my life that are kind of colliding here, because we've been looking at getting a trailer and whatnot. We've had the shift pod for years, right? So this is sort of there it is. Yeah.
So what sort of amenities does it have on the inside?
So inside, so this is the hilarious thing. It's all mattress on the inside, as most teardrops are. There is a shelf, and on top of the shelf there is a small boombox, for your tunes, which has a CD player. Remember CDs? Those are like records that play CDs. There's the cat knocking the lens cap with the camera off the table. And then beside that, underneath the shelf, attached to the shelf, quite securely, a Blu-ray player.
Ooh.
Wow.
And then there's a tiny LCD TV up to the side. And so that was there. Just above your head, a black light, which
Oh no.
it's very, very much you can tell. These are hippies that were traveling across America. So that was a thing.
Were they clean? Were they clean hippies?
You know what?
Or the other kind?
Turn the black light on, and it looked relatively clean in there.
It's a Jackson Pollock.
Well, you had to go there, didn't you? My mom watches this stream. Jesus.
This week on SVU. So, great. Just before you arrived, we were talking a bit about the DART project, and it made quite an impact, apparently. So we just, before we move on, do you have any quick thoughts on the significance of, what transpired, the contact they made, and what we've seen in terms of imagery since, and what do you think? How do you think this bodes for the future?
Honestly, I mean, I've always said that the space program is nature's way of asteroids is nature's way of saying, how's that space program coming?
Yeah.
And so this was delightful because it was one of the first times that NASA has crashed a spacecraft and the mission has been a success. That's
good point.
That's great.
Yeah.
And we're can we just take a moment to celebrate the fact that we're playing celestial billiards right now? That is so cool. It's so great. So I mean, this I think is delightful for a few reasons. One, the mission was a rousing success as far as contact goes. I haven't actually seen today whether or not they were able to see after run adjustments in trajectory. It's just I haven't seen if it's happened yet.
TBD,
but yeah, TBD. But I mean, this does a couple of things. One, it protects any future Bruce Willises from having to sacrifice themselves, and that's a very important thing. And
what about the Ben Afflecks?
They didn't have to because of the Bruce Willises. So
There you go.
the downside is we will probably see fewer Aerosmith songs because of it. So it's just look at that resolution,
It's unreal.
So neat, and it's I think you had was it a ColecoVision?
All the things.
Yeah,
but I didn't get that. I didn't get that one until the '90s. So,
but you have asteroids on there, right? And it's just
I've got asteroids and on the Atari and all that. All the things. Yeah.
What we were playing in vector graphics 3 decades ago. They just did for real.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, from 7 million miles away, which was pretty wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, so just wanted to get your quick input on that, and before we move on here, so we've got a few other stories, but I think we all agree, like, this is what a time to be alive, as they say,
Right.
and what a time to stay alive, hopefully, thanks to
Yeah.
technology like this.
Yep.
All right, so we were just talking a little bit about the Swedish house Mafia Ikea turntable, which. Great thing for those vinyl curious. Another sort of, as opposed to music consumption project, there's a music creation project courtesy of experimental electronic musician Aphex Twin, who has a sample mashing app that he has had a developer working on for a number of years after he first started thinking about it almost 20 years ago. And it's referred to as mutation-driven software, and it's been released to the world. And apparently, it's in classic sort of Aphex Twin fashion. It's kind of obscure, highly complicated. Again, like his music, and just to I don't know, just perfectly on theme for someone like Aphex Twin. We're going to have the interface of the app in Comic Sans, just because he DJ AF, right? so now it's known as Sample Brain. Now, Will, Gray, you're both been working on creating your own music for a while here. Are you? I'm not sure how familiar you are with Aphex Twin. I've got a bunch of his stuff since the early '90s. There, I prefer his ambient stuff as opposed to his noisy, unlistenable stuff. But some of his stuff is quite beautiful, and some of his videos are very interesting, very strange. Directed by some famous directors. I think Chris Cunningham was one of them. Great. Let's start with you. Any interest in some sample mashing, courtesy of Aphex Twin and Sample Brain?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of like looking at this, the complexity reminds me of old like Reactor stuff. Like music software has always kind of been slightly unobtainable. Even today, if you look at Ableton, and even Logic, they're not really easily accessible. When you start getting into, the secret of music production is sidechaining, and you're like, well, how the hell do I do that with any of these things? This is kind of, it's a little esoteric, but it's not way off the path here. Samples are so much fun to play with, so much so that I've started collecting. I'm even pulling them out of pieces of music that I have. The ability to break music up into stems now, and basically take your vocals or your bass line or whatever else and turn that into a sample on its own. It could be really fun to play with this. So I'm curious to see what I could do with it, knowing sort of my like amateur to intermediate level, and then obviously looking at seeing what people who have actual talent. Will, this is your turn to step in. I can do with it. I'm curious and fascinated.
So apparently what you can do is turn audio files from your computer into sample blocks then you can then use to build your own compositions, and even recreating a sample using tracks in your music library, or riffing, making your 303 style bass lines from various sounds and whatnot. So the app is available, pre-compiled, ready to download and run for Mac and Windows, and if you're hardcore, you could recompile it for Linux. Will, any interest here to mess around with when you're making your beats?
Absolutely, and I think there's a lot of opportunity here to do some interesting things in the sample space, in the music generation space, or generator space. It's funny because things have either been like complete toys, or they've been overly complicated. And I think there is really a sweet spot for somewhere in between. And it's sort of a bit like what happened to maybe video editing about 10 or 15 years ago. And I know we have GarageBand, which is actually pretty good as well, and it can be very deep and powerful. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of offerings, and there seems to be a lot of focus on things that are very old programs with very old ways of doing things, like Logic, like Ableton. And they're not always intuitive. It requires a lot of work to get into them, and I think I've mentioned it before on the show, but one of the things that really helped me learn editing, music generation, audio editing, was and I played around with a few programs, but sequencers, so particularly the TR-8S, which is a physical piece of hardware. But from there, the idea of sequencing really got me into something called Serato Studio. And from there, I wanted to learn more, and that's where I've looked into Ableton and other programs, particularly Ableton. But I would really encourage people, if you want to start learning, for me anyways, sequencing was a big sort of, coming from coding, coming from, turning something on and off and seeing what happens to it. That was a big thing. So, the famous Roland 808 is basically what the TR-8S is, just a modern digital version, not an analog version. And then Serato Studio, which is free to download, I think, for a while, is like pretty simple on the surface, but actually pretty deep. And the point is that if you can make a song in that, it's still a song. Like, it's not like there's some other special things that Ableton or Logic will do, but like you can create a pretty good beat from that people have a hard time noticing too much different unless you're playing it on like $100,000 stereo in a club. People probably won't be able to tell the difference, right? So some of that stuff gets into really the nerdy like frequencies about the 808 drum or the bass line or the sub or whatever. It's like, but you're not going to do that with music coming like an MP3 coming out of your laptop speakers. So I mean, the sound, you won't be able to notice much difference if you create on something like Serato Studio as opposed to Logic or Ableton or something like that, in my opinion. I mean, I don't have the most educated ear when it comes to frequencies, but I know some people are like, oh, wow, that just doesn't sound right. I can hear some of those things, but yeah, I'm just saying that I love programs that give power to people to create. And I think that should be the focus, not getting into, a nerd zealot fight about which is better, Ableton or for video editing, Premiere or Final Cut Pro or all that kind of stuff. So this is where I think the point is to create something, and if it sounds pretty good or looks pretty good, then it doesn't matter at the end of the day what program you use. Well, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now, but I think that people are too hung up on those things.
So speaking of weird zealot fights, let's talk about video games and movie adaptations thereof.
Sounds great.
So The Last of Us, which came out in 2013 and was set in 2013, it came out originally for the PS3, and then it got remastered for the PS4, and then there was a part 2. Now we're going to see a movie adaptation starring fan favorite, you may know from certain Star Wars related TV series, Pedro Pascal. Oh, he was also in Game of Thrones as well. As I refer to him as Puss in Boots there. Will has a slightly less savory name for him when we were watching Game of Thrones back in the day. But The Last of Us is, post-apocalyptic survival genre. It's beautiful. There was a little bit of controversy at one point regarding one of the characters maybe looking a little similar to a well-known actor at the time, but they've since been redone some of the character style there. But I have never actually gotten around to playing it because we never got a PS4. And it's like, it seems like, well, do I really want to play a game that's beautiful on the PS3? But now it turns out they're making they're totally rebuilding the game from the ground up for the PS5, and that just came out, I believe, late August, early September. But now to go along with that, we've got this forthcoming movie. So my question to you, Gray, is A, have you ever played Last of Us? And B, thoughts on this forthcoming movie? Is this gonna, because video game movies generally don't have a good track record.
I am. I loved The Last of Us on PlayStation 3 and then again on PlayStation 4. And It was stunning on both platforms. I will be picking up the PlayStation 5 version at some point. I need a break from Destiny at some point, so I will have to. And
give it a couple more years, maybe.
This is the game that will let me take a 2-week break off of Destiny. It is one of the most cinematic and touching and heart-wrenching experiences I've ever had playing video games. The climax of the game left me a little shattered.
Oh.
Like it was, and in the context of the last 2 years, the idea here is that there is a fungal infection that essentially just wipes humanity out, and the few who are left evolve into a society that we fear would happen when something like this does happen. So these cordyceps possessed human beings, basically it's a fungus that gets up into the brain and obviously does some horrible things to the rest of them as well. And these things are very sensitive to sound. They can't see, but they're sensitive to sound. And so, in the opening of the game, you play Joel, who's played by Pedro Pascal here, and in a very short amount of time, trying to escape with your daughter, she doesn't make it. It's not a spoiler. It happens the first couple of minutes of the game. And Joel then takes on
I'm out.
Joel then takes on basically parenting this young girl, Ellie, who appears to be immune to this virus, and so then begins the quest to cross the country to see if you can get Ellie to a lab that may be able to save all of humanity if you can figure out why Ellie is immune.
So no pressure, just saving all humanity.
Not good things and not good people along the way, and it's tough. I absolutely love the game. Looking at this, I have extremely high hopes for this. This looks like this feels like what I felt when I played the game. I'm getting that when I'm watching this. So I think they've got it. I think we're past the era of butchering game material in order for it to fit into a movie, and that's because games have become more cinematic. There wasn't a whole lot cinematic about what Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo had to work with Mario. And then famously, what's that fella's name? The German dude. He owned the restaurant down on Cordova. Uwe Boll. Yeah. And he famously loved making terrible movies because he basically got producer-style tax credits for it from Germany. I think that era is over as well. I think we are in an era now where we can actually bring these different media types across boundaries to a point where it's actually worthwhile either playing a movie based on a game, or watching a movie based on a game, or playing a game based on a movie.
Yeah, as those respective mediums seem to converge. So Pedro Pascal is not the only Game of Thrones alum in this game. The female protagonist is played by Bella Ramsey, and she had played Lyanna Mormont in Game of Thrones, and also a fan favorite there. So looks good so far. Now, Will, what's your take on this? Being a fan of some of the works of these actors, and have you played the game? And
I have. I'm a fan of the actors. This looks great. I was a fan of the game. The one thing I would say, very cinematic, and I enjoyed the game, but it wasn't my cup of tea in terms of gameplay. But the story was great. The way it happened was great, and that's not its fault, it's my fault. I'm a run and gun type of guy. I like to walk into a room and just shoot everyone, and that is not the game for that. You got to stealth, you got to strategically plan. I just like to go in shooting first and figure out and roll over the bodies and see what I need to get from them. So that's how I play video games. So it is not that game whatsoever. But amazing story, amazing graphics. Naughty Dog, the studio, is pretty much knocks everything out of the park for the most part. And this was another masterpiece by them. So I played the first one. I didn't have a chance to play the second one. I may play the new one on the PlayStation 5. So.
And so the movie for The Last of Us adaptation should be dropping on HBO Max sometime in 2023. No official date yet. I myself am waiting to see what they can do with the cinematic adaptation of Dig Dug.
Yes.
Bubble.
Yeah, even
Bubble,
better.
bubble, yeah.
Even better. All right.
Hey, they did Battleship. If they can
Fair
do
enough.
Battleship,
And I
they
actually,
can do
that was
anything.
a guilty pleasure.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it. I will give that a go.
it's
Oh
interesting.
yeah, turn off your brain and just like they take it places that the board game never went. But yeah,
All right.
that's definitely the kind of movie.
Liam Neeson.
That's the type of movie that we see together.
Fair.
Yeah.
You know, if some of us go to theaters again, Gray, you going to
What?
theaters again yet?
Yeah, I have. By myself with a mask.
All right. So speaking of Pedro Pascal, the Star Wars TV series we had kind of alluded to that he is in, of course, is Mandalorian, and we're just waiting for season 3 of that, which I believe is this winter. But Lego has revealed a massive 6,187 piece Mandalorian Razor Crest set for $600 US. Razor Crest, of course, being his ship. The model includes Baby Yoda and Mando figurines, because of course it does. So look at this. Now, that's a lot of pieces. Yes, Gray.
If you leave it unconstructed, it's actually canon legit to how the Razor Crest ends up. So
Yes.
Yeah.
you can just dump it on the floor and be like, ta-da, we're done.
It's spoiler alert. Holy Lord.
Well.
So, okay, love that this exists, but I have to admit, I'm gonna start with my opinion on here. I have to admit that these super deluxe Lego sets, which are awesome, they kind of make me a little sad because, Lego was in a lot of ways about creativity, accessibility for kids, and being able to just like build whatever you want. I mean, you can build the plan of whatever you got, and then you tear it apart and build whatever. But with these sets having so many pieces and costing so much money, it feels like they're really out of the reach for a lot of kids and families that would really, really enjoy this sort of thing. And it seems to me that a lot of this stuff nowadays is just kind of geared towards, grown-up geeks with a lot of disposable income. Am I alone here? Is this like I mean, it's cool, but it's like, like as a kid, I would have loved. I mean, this is next level, like 6,000 pieces. I mean, you need a kid that has a good attention span, but imagine a great project to be able to enjoy and create with your child if they needed help, especially if they're younger. And there's a lot of small pieces there. Will, what do you think? Am I crazy? Is this like?
So I hear what you're saying, and I don't completely disagree. What I will say is there's a cheaper version of this. There's $100 version or something like that, or maybe it's more than that. But we have it. It's less detailed. There's far fewer pieces, but it's not $600. It's like $150 or something. I'd have to look it up again. But so you can get a cheaper set. This is for your hyper nerd type, and there are I have a few friends who buy things like this, and I'm not against it. I mean, I just wouldn't beat me. We actually have the original Millennium Falcon. That's the big supermassive one that's 10 billion pieces or whatever it is. The thing that's crazy to me is these things retain value. Like there's an aftermarket for these things. Like the Millennium Falcon that we have, like used with an open box, is still like $2,000 or something stupid. So, and it was only purchased for $800 like 10 years ago. So it's one of these things where these things, it's become a whole thing, right? Like reselling and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't disagree with you, but there are cheaper versions of this. Yeah.
Here we go. $179.99 Canadian dollars for the Razor Crest. So yeah, definitely a lot simpler. And okay, thank you for bringing that to my attention. That makes me feel.
Now, you could say that that's still expensive.
It is,
and people will say it's still expensive.
Yeah, well, the grandparents can get that for the grandkids, and
yeah,
or people can.
But
team
that's
up.
also a big set.
Exactly,
that's a fairly big set.
How many pieces?
There are
still 1,000 pieces. Wow,
unlimited role play adventures. Bless them.
There you go. And then you can take it apart and build other cool stuff and combine it with your other Legos. Gray, thoughts on this? Am I getting soft in my old age here, or?
No, I think the opinion is valid. It's one of those things where I think Lego as a company has realized that there are cash cows out there, and as long as they continue turning out good quality sets that don't cost $180, as long as this keeps Lego accessible to kids at a maybe a less expensive price point. We didn't have this when we were growing up. There were some sets, but there wasn't anything quite like this. And in a lot of cases, even the big, medieval castle and whatever else sets, you could buy that, but you also had most of the pieces to make that if you just bought suitcases of Lego for other people. And so, I mean, as long as this keeps the dream alive, rock on.
All right. So we're all going to put it on our Christmas wish list, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of Star Wars, news just in the last few days, Darth Vader's voice will be AI generated from now on. So some people may or may not have noticed this, but apparently in the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series was actually the first version of this using a tool called Respeecher, which has actually its origins in Ukraine. And there's a whole story in Vanity Fair which talks about the journey to make this happen. And those who were paying very close attention may have noticed, something slightly, very slightly off in Darth Vader's voice. But I think a lot of us just got distracted by the fact that they eventually merged Darth Vader's, breather voice with the Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen voice, and that whole scene was blowing our minds. So maybe we weren't paying too much attention to was it actually James Earl Jones, or was it basically AI? So James Earl Jones is 91 years old now and has been voicing Darth Vader for 45 years, starting with A New Hope back in 1977. So, and apparently this whole project has been done with his permission, and they have enough content from his roles in the various Star Wars movies, and they've been focusing mostly on the older movies when I guess his voice was a bit more consistent. But now with all the AI, and we've seen as AI being used for deepfakes and whatnot, this is something where it's being used for good. And Darth Vader's voice can, as we know, have known love or hate from decades past, will go on into future series. Gray, is this okay with you, or is this a little too weird?
I know. I think it's great. It's interesting as long as this is done with the artist's performance, because the artist will have to generate the performance to begin with. When I think of how different people speak, this is fantastic for just a straight, vocal reproduction. The interesting thing for me, again, is when we have actors who have perhaps an interesting speech pattern. William Shatner being one of them, Christopher Walken, John Malkovich. These are folks that you could probably get the tone of their voice. You're going to have someone who's going to be able to have that affect as well. So I think there's going to be an element of performance here. As long as it's done with the artist's permission, I don't see a problem with this, as well as the artist getting paid some residuals for essentially supplying those frequencies to work with. I don't know what that's worth on the open market. So we'll have to see.
Or their estate, as the case may be, sooner or later.
Sooner or later, people are just going to be heads in jars, according to Futurama. So if that's the case, and this could pay for my upkeep as a head in a jar, I'd be happy to do it. So if you're watching a version of this podcast 200 years down the road, and it's actually just sounding like me, now I was okay with it.
It's amazing the tools from Well Said Labs and others that we use in our business for placeholder voiceover for our e-learning at limestonelearning.com. And it's getting amazingly good as time goes on. Still trips up a little bit on some proper nouns. I think I mentioned before. I had trouble with the word Kelowna, and so you could do like phonetic pronunciation to help it to help it along. But these AI voices are getting so good, and you've got a lot of sample material from the original actor in this case. So the sky's the limit. Will, you're pretty deep into the whole Star Wars fandom. How do you feel about this?
I'm totally fine with it. I mean, again, like Gray and you've been saying, as long as the artist is compensated or there's some acknowledgement made to families and the people who supplied the original work, I don't have a problem with it. And I think it is nice that Star Wars in general is exploring this, not necessarily recasting, although they have recast some roles, but they're looking at ways at telling stories with technology that let us still keep the idea of those characters that we have in our head. That was actually a funny thing. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Kathleen Kennedy said that was one of the big learnings from Solo: A Star Wars Story, was not to recast. Nobody wanted Solo recast, and that is a learning to take away from that. I would also say that there's lots of other learnings that should have also been taken away from that. That's not the one I would have stuck on, but that's definitely one that I think is interesting when you see them starting to try to do some of these experiments with, faces and Luke Skywalker and things like that. So, and some people don't like that. I think it's great. I love the idea of maintaining these characters and using technology to try to do it. So I'm for it, but I know that this is a controversial subject to some people.
Well, when you're doing prequels, it's hard to avoid recasting, and unless, of course, you're going to do the, putting an actor's young face on either their or another actor's body, Luke Skywalker style, in again certain series that we've seen in the last year or two. Of course, Princess Leia too in Rogue One, and there's still a little bit of an uncanny valley with some of that stuff, and especially with well-known and well-loved actors. But whether it's the computer graphics for the visuals or the AI-driven voice recreation, and they're both getting better and better as time goes on. And I mean, there's always going to be people who are going to pick them apart. But if you're not paying, most people aren't paying that close attention. Hell, some people are watching movies on like their phones and tablets, and the audio is not necessarily going to be that great, let alone the video. So this is one of these cases where the technology is just like growing by such leaps and bounds. So
the one that's been bothering me is not necessarily this type of technology, but is 3D After Effects nuke, whatever you want to call it, is She-Hulk. She-Hulk does look like a character from The Sims. It is a bit spooky sometimes. Sometimes I can let it go. Sometimes I just,
it's tough.
I can have the suspension of disbelief, but sometimes it jars me out of the story. So, especially given how important the Hulk part of her character is in that story. And I know it's a TV show, so they may not have the budget that they have for Hulk in the movie, but it occasionally is really uncanny valley, like crappy video game, like chunky animation kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a superhero comedy-esque type show, which is fun. It's not everyone's cup of tea. We've been enjoying it. It's got a few little issues, that being one of the big ones. It's just like, it is what it is. It's on like you said, they're on a TV show budget, and hopefully it'll just continue to get better and better. I mean, the Hulk Prime, as it were, he's been problematic too, and I think one of the best uses of Hulk is when they've been keeping him in the shadows, like in the second Hulk movie with what's his face, American History X. Yes, yeah. So in the early scenes with Hulk, there, when just keep it a little bit mysterious, but when he's like front and center, and now with She-Hulk being front and center, it's like it's not very forgiving whatsoever.
I'm mostly in She-Hulk for the legal procedure, so
yeah, exactly.
Really,
well, I love that it's how it's set in LA, just like LA law too. So. All right, so we're just a real quick lightning round. This is a couple of weeks ago. There's the Disney's D23 Expo, where they tease a whole lot of stuff from their various divisions, including Marvel, Lucasfilm, Pixar, Disney Plus, and so on. So just going to do, I'm going to ask for your quick takes out of the 4 or 5 in each of these categories. I want to know from each of you which you are most excited about. So for theatrical, we've got Marvel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Captain America, New World Order. I haven't even heard of that. another Fantastic Four coming in 2024. Same with Captain America 2024 and Thunderbolts. Will, pick one.
Well, I'll say Thunderbolts is probably the thing I'm most interested here. I've got a bunch of other stuff with D23 that I can mention at the end as well.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we'll get to it, but
So several castings were announced for Thunderbolts, which will be closing out Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe on July 26th, 2024. So the cast includes David Harbour, so you may recall him from Stranger Things, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who has also been in the MCU, and of course famous for Seinfeld, Wyatt Russell, Florence Pugh, who was the in Black Widow, Sebastian Stan, so Winter Soldier, Hannah John Kamen, and Olga Kurylenko. Gray, what's your pick out of these upcoming Marvels over the next couple of years?
It's a toss-up between Black Panther and Captain America. I'm fascinated to see where they go with Black Panther. Obviously, there's going to be some, not recasting, but I think reimagining of where the character is going. I hope Shuri. I really hope Shuri. I think that would be so cool. But if they do bring Killmonger back,
yeah,
hell of a redemption story. So, I'm there for it.
I see I see where you're going with that.
It could happen, right? Like we've been to the realm beyond with Moon Knight, so it could happen. And Anthony Mackie, I could watch that guy read a phone book. Like he's just, I've loved him so much. I don't love the suit as it is right now. It looks a little Nerf headgear, but I feel like it's going to continue to evolve. But I just seeing him as Captain America, I'm like, yeah, man.
I'm thinking maybe because they could go full A-Train from The Boys for the Falcons. I'm gonna go with the dark horse, Fantastic Four, just out of morbid curiosity because fourth time lucky.
Yeah.
What happens when Reed Richards hasn't had his head popped?
Exactly. Right. So I mean, fourth time's a charm for Fantastic Four. We'll see. Yep. Lucasfilm, Indiana Jones 5, and Willow.
Was there a 4?
Yeah, they nuked the fridge.
Right.
With Shia LaBeouf.
I think I drank myself into a stupor on that one.
Good idea.
Willow, I'm stoked for.
Yeah, I'm stoked for Willow.
Yeah. Okay. Again, I'll pick the other just to be contrarian because please make it better than the last one. I mean, the last one was fine, I guess, but I guess just after so many years, there's so much pressure, so much buildup, and then you get some things happen, and then people are like, ugh. All right, so we got 20th century films. We got Avatar: The Way of Water. Gonna see it. Not excited. Don't like the CG, but
no.
You guys.
It's back in theaters. The first one. Do you guys want to go see that? I'd go back to the theater for that.
Maybe. But we got another 4 coming after this. Like, come on. Disney live action, Mufasa,
we watched
The Lion
18
King.
Marvel movies before Captain America 2. Come on, man.
We got Mufasa, The Lion King, and Little Mermaid. I don't do a ton of Disney live action nowadays because I don't really care about either personally. I've never even seen the originals all the way through, I don't think. So
They're only 88 minutes. It doesn't take long.
There we go.
Yeah. 92 for The Lion King.
Okay. Any picks for either of you guys in those two?
I'll go see both of those. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it ends badly for Mufasa, but...
Yeah, Mufasa, maybe. I don't know. It's a tough call because I don't like these live action
it's like
remakes all that much.
It's going back to the well. Out of ideas. Okay, Disney Plus, Hocus Pocus 2, speaking of out of ideas, and Disenchanted, and Peter Pan and Wendy. They're going straight to Disney Plus, so does that say it all right there?
The stuff about Peter Pan and Wendy doesn't sound great. They've got a different... there's no Tinkerbell.
What?
It's Tiger Lily or something. And
the Tiger...
Wendy is not so much a damsel in distress as she is a partner.
That's fine.
So, I don't know. It's a little bit of a reimagining. So we'll see. I'll probably watch it, but I don't have high hopes from what I saw.
I spent a lot of time on my dad's first fish boat in the mid-'70s listening to Peter Pan story on tape with narration and music. So don't ruin my childhood.
All right.
I don't know if I've ever actually got around to seeing the movie. I think I might have at some point. And of course, there's Hook. Animated film, we've got theatrical releases Elemental, Elio from Pixar, Inside Out 2 from Pixar, Strange World, and Wish. I'm going to go with Inside Out 2 because I enjoyed the first one. Don't really know much about any of the others. Gray?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that there was a lot of buzz coming out of D23 about Wish. I haven't seen the trailer, but people who were there said it was super duper amazeballs. So
Alan Tudyk plays a goat, so
I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. I'm in.
okay.
I'm in.
There we go. On TV, Marvel, Ironheart, Secret Invasion, Armor Wars, Loki Season 2, Echo, Daredevil Born Again. They've been teasing the heck out of Daredevil and a couple of recent things, including She-Hulk and something before that. And Werewolf by Night. Gray? One. You only get one.
Pick one of them. Loki. Daredevil, close second. Loki. Yeah. Just put it into my veins.
Will?
Secret Invasion.
Right. Me too. The trailer looks amazing. I think we did.
No, that's the Armor Wars thing.
Yeah, it's got. I think
talked
we
about
showed
it, didn't we?
Yeah, I did last week. I think we did the trailer for Secret Invasion. Again, the return of Maria Hill. Gotta love it. And of course, Nick Fury. Again, I love spy thriller.
Sam Jackson as Nick Fury, not as a Skrull, as Nick.
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about it. I'll take it however we can get it. Lucasfilm, Andor. I don't think any of us care about that. Mandalorian trailer season 3. Oh, so season 3 for Mandalorian. Star Wars Bad Batch. And Tales of the Jedi. I honestly haven't watched any of the Star Wars animated stuff. So those last two. I'm not going to give an opinion on this. So I'm going to go to you, Will. If you had to choose one of these four.
I mean, I'm psyched for the Mandalorian.
All right. Even more so than Andor that we're currently watching.
Well, we'll talk about Andor, but
Okay.
I mean, I think I haven't seen enough about Andor. I'm like 2.5 seasons into Mandalorian. I'm all in for more. So.
Oh, and I love how you. What was that? Passive aggressive. 2.5 seasons, like Boba Fett was actually a Mandalorian season.
Yeah.
It was. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. That's yeah.
Great.
It's okay that it was as well.
Yeah.
Bad Batch. I'm
probably redeemed it, frankly.
I'm dying to find out what's going on with Amiga in Bad Batch. So and it feels like Bad Batch and Mandalorian at some point are going to cross over. And this is not an unheard of thing. Right, we've got Star Trek Lower Decks and Star Trek Strange New Worlds have a crossover episode in the second season of Strange New Worlds. So I'm
coming soon.
I'm seeing a Disney. You know what?
I hope they do it like Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
Disney Plus, American-born Chinese, Big Shot, Waju, The Muppets Mayhem, National Treasure, Edge of History, Prom Pact, The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, Season 2, The Santa Clauses, because we need another one of them, Win or Lose from a Pixar series, and Zootopia Plus, again, a series. Wow, there's a lot to digest here, Gray.
I've got no idea.
The answer is always Nicolas Cage. Come on.
National Treasure. Let's just rock.
Is he actually in it?
Oh, he better be.
There's a trailer. They need to take National Treasure and cross it with Night at the Museum, and you've got a hit series on your hands there. Little Ben Stiller, little Nicolas Cage. Boom, done.
We got so Catherine Zeta-Jones. Oh, so it's a series.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if it doesn't look like there's any official Nicolas Cage.
He's not in it.
Oh, fine.
Boo.
Yeah.
Okay, even with that in mind, Will, what's your thoughts on these Disney Plus offerings?
Muppets for sure.
Muppets. A comedy series. So Muppets. There was one called Muppets Tonight a few years ago.
That was really good. It was actually really, really not well received.
Yeah,
but it was
a bit
amazing.
Meta too, wasn't it?
I do recommend watching. They changed the showrunner halfway through the season, but I recommend the whole series. But definitely the first half of the season is just amazing. It's so good. It's so good.
We'll have to check it. I think I saw a little bit of it. Anyway, just to round out the list, we've got some new unscripted holiday specials, Best in Snow, Pentatonics Around the World for the Holidays, the Hip Hop Nutcracker, and then on the Disney Channel, Marvel's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, Under Wraps 2, and on Disney Junior, Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures. So those are all short kind of categories, lumping them together. Anything jump out at you from any of those, Will?
I mean, I'm interested to see Moon Girl. It's definitely for kids. But yeah, I'm interested to watch that.
I'm disappointed you didn't say Hip Hop Nutcracker featuring Run DMC's Rev Run.
I'm not gonna lie to you, that's actually kind of where I'm going. That's kind of my jam.
Nice. All right, so lots coming our way from the ever-growing multinational monolith that is.
Can I just give
Disney.
a quick recap about D23? So we've been mostly talking about movies and entertainment, but they do other things with theme parks and stuff like that. So the sort of top things that many people took away from D23, and I'm sure you'll have different people disagree or agree with this, is a new ride at Avengers Campus, which is based on the multiverse, and they unveiled King Thanos, which was a brand new version of Thanos where he won, and he's got an epic white beard. Awesome.
Thanos the White.
Indiana Jones 5. Obviously, a lot of people were buzzing about that. There's a life-size Hulk that's going into Avengers Campus in Disneyland. He looks a little janky. Look him up. He's wearing a suit. It looks a little bit like, Frankenstein, but they've got this big Hulk character dressed in the time suit from Endgame. It is something cool that they're doing. And that movie, the animated movie Wish, came off pretty well. Everyone was saying it was amazing. Oh, here you are. Watch him walk out.
So this is animatronic?
So they've got an exosuit that someone's actually in. So probably their hands end somewhere before his elbows or something like that. And they've actually got like levers that control. And a lot of it is 3D printed. They are actually showing the technology at the expo about how it is made. So he's actually giant if you look at him, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people are also complaining, well, he's in the suit. But, if he had a head, then they need a full head that's going to speak and everything. So, he's a little bit like Frankenstein as he walks out.
Fire bad. You know what it is? It's the articulation from the elbows and the fingers. It's not...
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think if those were... And I would imagine...
They're working on it, I'm sure.
I was going to say, I'd imagine that's just not done yet. Because we have the technology to articulate and match. I'm going to bet that the servos for those things just either stopped working before the performance, or they haven't quite got that installed properly yet. Because it's like, this is a little janky, but we could forgive that. It was the stiffness from the elbows down that made that look weird. And I think if they can get that where he's actually like gesturing and talking, like we've got, not animatronics, but we've got models that can do that. They'll get that fixed. It'll look
cool. And the thing is too, like they've actually piloted it in Disneyland already on a limited basis. They've said this is just tests basically. So
how many
they
casualties?
have them out for 15 minutes. Sorry,
how many casualties?
Yeah, how many casualties? But from people that I've heard that have seen him in person, not just on a stage, it's impressive as long as he doesn't walk. If he's just standing there and talking to you, it's fine. It's when he starts walking that is a problem. So, so they have like Mark Ruffalo's voice where they do sort of canned responses, and actually they have a pretty wide gambit, sort of almost like video game technology.
He's not getting a whole lot of work. It might actually be Mark Ruffalo.
Exactly.
Sorry, Mark, if you're watching.
It is pretty cool. It is a pretty cool thing. So we'll see where it goes.
They could make things a lot simpler and just hire Lou Ferrigno. I mean, he knows the role, right? But it's just
your head is big.
I was just thinking. So, friend of the show, Andy Barrar, several years ago, when we all of us together were working on Get Connected, he was at like a fan expo or something, and he's interviewing Lou Ferrigno, and at one point he just turns and he's like, "Man, you got a big head."
Oh, God.
Sorry, this is Momentous After Dark. Do you know the other subtext to that? Have we had this discussion?
Is it something to do with his hearing, with Lou Ferrigno's hearing
well,
loss?
It's hearing. That was one thing that was brought up, that he doesn't have great hearing, so I think he was thrown off by it. But the other subtlety that we thought about later is, it is a thing about steroid use that your head grows bigger. and your feet grow bigger. And so there was, so there was a worry that maybe that was part of the upset as well, that
Not
it
the
was
first
tiptoeing on delicate things.
We watched that video clip over and over.
Not the first time and not the last time that Andy said something that almost got him killed.
Because he just kind of looks at him like, what's wrong?
I love Andy, but that was great. And he laughs about it too, so.
Oh, God.
All right, so in the most important story of the evening, just a real quick one here. Word from the CEO of Costco is that the hot dog drink combo is going to cost $1.50 forever. The CEO is on the record. Best deal in North America at the very least. You know, you get your quarter-pound your foot-long hot dog or your Polish sausage with your soft drink plus refill, $1.50. Same in the States as in Canada. That Canadian deal is even better when you think about it, given the exchange rate. And apparently, way back in the day, which they've had the same price since 1985. But the Costco founder Jim Sinegal once told the CEO of Costco, Craig Jelinek, "If you raise the price of the effing hot dog, I will kill you. Figure it out."
Nice.
So rest assured, gents, if we ever go on any future hot dog trips, that's basically what they are. Costco trips together. Currently, I go about once a month with friend of the show, Sam Chow, and we always get the hot dog and a pop.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get pulled in by the higher margin items, like he often gets a pizza, or maybe we get
the Sunday if the ice cream machine's working.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Well, they're not McDonald's, so hopefully their machines are working properly. But so I just wanted to
rest. They're not working. It's usually that they're out because it is so popular.
That's right.
But we need more Jim Senegals in the world. I have to say, because I used to live 3 blocks away from the Costco, and since moving away, might be coincidence, I've lost 10 pounds and my sodium level is like half what it used to be. So
we'll have to rectify that. All right, so everyone home can rest assured that all is right in the world until the end of time. Hot dog and a pop at Costco, $1.50. You can count on it. Otherwise, the CEO will have to fear for his life. All right, quick picks of the week. Will jumped in. I was thinking of doing this yesterday, and frickin' Will jumped in. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago with the trailer. We talked about it last year when it was first teased. Will, your peak of the week, your pick of the week is?
Andor. So the first 3 episodes were released. Really satisfying. I really enjoyed them. Really good storytelling, slow burn, really get involved in the world, get to see some of the motivations behind different characters, but also maybe the beginnings of the rebellion. And we really get a little bit more of a deep character dive than we get in many worlds and many stories. So I enjoyed it thoroughly. Great acting, great production, great effects. I can't say enough about it. I just really enjoyed it.
I'm kind of sad that, unlike Obi-Wan, Cassian Andor doesn't have a day job where he just chops a lot of meat.
Yeah.
Great. Have you had a chance to check out Andor yet?
I have not, and so I'm going to immediately after this show. I will say, though, that it is my favorite Star Wars project named after a Boolean command. That's an Andor joke.
And Boolean
if
command. Well done. I'm going to, in the interest of time, because we're way late, I'm going to ride the coattails of Will's pick, because it was going to be my pick, and I recommend, Gray, if you're going to watch Andor, watch all 3 back to back if you can manage to stay awake. It is a bit of, I was getting 70s spy thriller, like Will said, slow burn vibes from it. I love spy thrillers. I love 70s spy thrillers.
The Conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Great movie. So if for those who are not quite in the know, the character of Cassian Andor also was featured in the Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which was sort of a full feature-length prequel to Star Wars 4: A New Hope, and arguably one of the best, if not the best, of the modern Star Wars movie, at least in my opinion. And so that's why we've been really excited about this. The various Star Wars series so far have been pretty good for the most part. People's opinions vary here and there, but I've been stoked for this one for a long time, and like Will said, it did not disappoint. So I'm just I'm just waiting for more, and I'm sad that it's going to be over. I think they're going to be doing 2 6-episode seasons, it sounds like. But give us all that we can get, because there's Blade Runner vibes to start too, music wise and visuals wise, which is cool.
You got me.
World building, and there's real tension, and we're truly blessed to have
that poster is great.
Right? Yeah. Okay, Gray, you are a pick of the week.
So I posted this in our chat, and the link is actually in our show notes here. Ryan Reynolds this afternoon posted an update about Deadpool. I missed D23, but have you guys seen this?
Didn't see the Ryan Reynolds bit, but heard the news. Go on.
It's great because it's in typical Ryan Reynolds fashion. There's a bit of self-deprecation going on about how he's really got to dig deep for this, and as he's pouring himself a full mug of aviation gin,
of course,
says, I got nothing. And then just as Hugh Jackman is walking in the background, he's like, hey, Hugh, you want to play Wolverine again? Yeah, Ryan, I will.
Super cash.
Yep.
Super cash. Yeah, so I guess your trailer is going to be the pick of the week. That's
yes.
We'll let it slide. Usually trailers are a different thing, but this is pretty exciting, and
this is worth watching on its own. This is
we all
a small
thought that he was done.
Episode.
Yeah. We all thought that Hugh Jackman was done with the Wolverine character after Logan was it was a wonderful coda to his whole character arc, his whole story arc. But now he's back, so I guess Ryan Reynolds got him liquored up and got him to agree. So Deadpool 3, and is it next year? Is it 2024? It's a ways away.
Yeah.
Will, you excited?
I'm super excited.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Hugh Jackman is great for Wolverine, and he could still play the role.
Yeah. Well, and it's a question of a lot of people are concerned that under the Disney banner that the Deadpool series would be tamed somewhat, but they're committed to, at least Kevin Feige is committed to letting Deadpool be Deadpool, and it could very well still end up with an R rating. So,
as long as we can find some other way of feeding another actor into a wood chipper like they did with Brad Pitt, I'm here for it.
Yeah, so it looks like that one's coming 2024. So both of them, Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman in the MCU, as well as Deadpool is brought into the MCU, and then who knows what they're going to do with the other X-Men characters going forward. But TBD. All right, picks. No, we talked about picks. Projects. Gray, what's your project?
I'm working on some AI. Mm-hmm. So I picked up an NVIDIA Jetson Nano, and I've been teaching it to recognize different things. So my goal for next year, I was thinking about seeing if I could bring an automated burner experience to Burning Man. We call it Abe. And so if I can get it to walk, I'm actually going to call it the automated bipedal burner experience, or Abby. So really, it'll just be that thing. But in the meantime, if I can just teach it to recognize a few things, I'll be excited about it. So that's what I've been doing. These things are a real blast. It's been amazing getting this thing up and running, and just seeing how quickly these libraries can now acquire content and make sense of them. Really, really neat.
So is the Jetson Nano basically, is it kind of like a Raspberry Pi on steroids? It's like a mini computer, but with powered by NVIDIA, and then used for mechanical projects like robots? Can you expand on it a little?
Yeah, well, and so this is actually, it's got a very powerful GPU, and so being able to do neural networks, AI-driven neural networks, and basically just going through those neural networking tasks of image recognition, even running basic AI chat. And so, and it can, you can see there with some of the examples, being able to slot this into a vehicle style, and then it being able to recognize the world around it, understand what's sort of a go, no-go, and navigate, between points, or even make decisions about where to navigate. So really, really neat kind of getting to understand AI and neural networks, and just, it was something I've wanted to do for a while. I picked one of these things up off of Reddit. There's a fellow out by UBC who had an older one that he was getting rid of. And so, we're just plugging away here, and it's pretty cool.
Very cool. It might take some cardboard or even some papier-mâché, but the question that, of course, we're all wondering is, can it run Doom?
I think actually it can. It runs Ubuntu quite well. Let me see.
You could build a maze, a real-world maze, and you could have AR Doom.
I like it. I like it a
Not
lot.
to be confused with MF Doom, Will.
Yeah.
So, all right, very cool. We look forward to updates on that project, Gray. And Will, you've got some more beats for us this week?
Yeah, volume 14 of Level Up Looper. So actually been getting some good responses from this one. So people seem to like it. And, got the usual cornucopia of titles there. Bare Knuckle Fighting, Funkapus.
Funkapus.
Marked for Death.
Marked for Death is good. That's
I see what you did there.
yeah. So I do like making titles. I have to say, I do enjoy the puns and the jokes and various other things. So so downloaded on Table Beats. It's also available on tableist.net. That's the web looper that you're looking at there. And enjoy. And hope you guys like it.
So you have a number of different series of loopers that you've released over the last couple of years. How would you characterize the beats in the Level Up series? What style?
Well, the idea behind Level Up is that it's supposed to have supposed to be like kind of all over the map, a little bit of everything. Different BPMs is kind of one of the hallmarks. Everything from lower end, like 70 or 80, to higher end things like 60 BPMs or 160 BPMs, 180 BPMs, 150 BPMs, something like that. So to give people a range just to practice on, where some of my other series, like things like the Retro Looper, obviously retro, it's like older school, hip hop, electro type stuff. And the BPMs tend to be pretty locked in somewhere between 80 and like 130 or something like that. So, Level Up's maybe a little bit more experimental on some things as well. So that's where I have a little bit more freedom, but I just experiment a little bit more there. Whereas things like the Retro Looper series, I just kind of, I do love the challenge of making a good electro beat. It's a formula, it's rails to keep you sort of on either side, but I enjoy trying to explore the genre and do things within that. So, or old school, like I'm actually doing a Retro Looper right now, Retro Looper 4, which will be out in a couple weeks, and I'm enjoying doing 808 style beats. So just there's something about that you have a set number of tools, and then trying to find creativity within that is fun.
And so for those who are worried that some of these beats might make your heart explode, when you say you're getting up to 160 or 170 BPM, we're not talking like gabber techno like that. It's more, there's more subtlety to the beats, and it's it's not like the kick drums going at that fast.
Yeah. And here's the other thing is that I also play around. People point this out, and it's partly a thing with scratching, is that sometimes the hats are at 170 or 160, but the kick drums are actually half speed. So if it's 180, they'd be 90. You can do the math. So it sounds fast, but if you're actually making music to it, it's not as fast as it appears, basically. Also, that's very popular right now with things like trap music, where trap hi-hats will often be like 160, but the kicks and the snares are often like 80.
Yeah, some denominator there.
Or you only have like a couple kicks, like for 8 bars of music, you'll have 2 kicks and like 1,000 hats. So
you have lots of choices for head bobbing or dancing. You can choose whatever element you want to.
Yeah, exactly. Go fast, go slow.
Depending on your stimulant of choice. So good stuff. We can look forward to checking those out, and then a couple weeks later, we'll get some more beats in your other series.
Yeah.
And our absentee co-host, Tasia Custodi, has another video on YouTube for us this week, and it is Google Sheets formulas tutorials, how to use formulas and functions in Google Sheets. So if you are a refugee from Microsoft Excel and have moved over to Google's cloud tools like Google Sheets and Google Pages and all those cloud services that Tasia knows really, really well, then check out her video there, and you can you can kiss Excel goodbye and use Google Sheets for a lot of your basic or even more advanced spreadsheet requirements.
Is there funding available if you're a refugee?
We'll pass the hat around. So you can find out Tasia's work at youtube.com/TasiaCustodi or on www.tasiacustodi.com. And of course, you can find us at momentus.tv and momentustv.tv/links for links to all the socials. And that's it, guys. Wow. That was an epic one, but glad you managed to slide in, Gray. And it's like we started a whole new show at that point.
Yeah,
and
it's a whole new show.
And Will's wife's probably asleep by now. Sorry, guy.
Yeah.
We're not done at 8. It's closer to 9.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh well.
I'm about to go watch some Andor.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to the updates on the teardrop and the beats. And Will, Gray, everyone else, thank you, and we hope your week is truly momentous.